So many ways to approach the question of what is Wall Street 2.0. As I said, Renaissance generally looks at disruptive events in the world at large, things that typically would affect emerging markets or maturing democracies, places where technology is moving so fast that the pace of technology itself drives disruption in politics, in society, in communications, and in economics. It's only after studying all of the overseas interesting things for so long that we actually started to come back and see what was going on right here at home. And actually, you think of Wall Street as a place that's fairly solid. The financial industry as one that takes measured steps towards improving technology and ratcheting forward. But actually, there's been a lot of disruption. And I think that today's Wall Street 2.0, whatever it is physically here on Wall Street, is in some ways a symbol, more than it is a continuation of the old way that Wall Street did business. So I think maybe we'll lead off with an open question, thinking about the different kinds of disruption, different kinds of technologies that can be brought to bear in Wall Street. Maybe each one of you could consider, pick a favorite disruptive technology, or it doesn't have to be a technology, perhaps a change in the way that Wall Street has fundamentally done business, that completely, you woke up one morning and Wall Street was really not what it had been when you went to bed. Steve, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, Wall Street has always been driven for speed. I mean, we had a little event called Hurricane Sandy in which Verizon got to benefit from changing the entire infrastructure downtown. But Wall Street is not confined to downtown Manhattan any longer. At one time when I started on Wall Street, I'm not going to date myself too much, but there was 4,500 brokerage firms, just brokerage firms downtown. Today there's 730 of size. It's changed quite a bit, so everyone wants to be connected. There's no restriction on where you can be located. Disruptive technologies are now looked upon, again, just finite speed and bandwidth. We see more and more outsourcing, and that is driving the street a little bit different. But events like Hurricane Sandy need to be mitigated. I mean, you talk about being down, I think, for roughly from 39th Street on down was everyone ran off of motor generators for months. Can Wall Street survive that way? One of the biggest disruptions is as much money is spent on Wall Street, it's a very fragile environment. We see outages and we see diversity as one of the mandates to do anything on Wall Street.
But I think that's one of the issues is we talk about money being spent or traded or lost or won at Wall Street, but in reality, most of it is not happening here anymore.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so it's because of communications and because of the networks that are built and the fact that these guys woke up one day and said, wow, we need to have data centers not here, right? That the shift started to happen. And I think, the internet is something else. I mean, it's not what it used to be 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but where people can make decisions. And there's tools even for the individual to get into the game. Not that they're going to do a great job, but or some are, but the fact is that it's just a different environment, right? Let's say from that perspective, and that's something that we have to look at, and how to service, let's say, those 700 brokerage firms with the very large ones in a way where you don't disrupt the business itself. It is, I think, critical for the future infrastructure of any financial metro area or destination.
Good afternoon. So when I think about disruptive technologies, and this topic is kind of interesting because, certainly I'm not an expert on Wall Street. I did work there for a while before I got into telecom internet. But, to me, if Wall Street fundamentally is about allocating capital. It's about, raising money or putting money to work for individuals, for corporations. So that allocation of capital between people that have capital and people that are desirous of putting their capital to work has always happened, as Steve and Eric said, in a finite location, very people intensive, very personal intensive. And, to me, the most disruptive thing that's happening is no different than what's disrupting all kinds of industries right now, which is that the internet, which for those of you who are old enough to have been around during the bubble era, failed in 2000, is now actually happening, and it's happening in a very real way. I mean, that's what Uber is about. That's what LinkedIn is about. That is what Pick Your Company is about, right? All those thoughts were already thought of between 95 and 99, but the ecosystem wasn't there, and they all failed. And then people that went through that experience, it was like a death in the family. You just didn't want to think about it. All right, that was a big mistake. Let's not think about that. Let's focus on something else. And then what happened is a younger generation that didn't have that emotional baggage realized that it could work. And obviously there was a lot of stuff that happened. So from an allocation of capital perspective, look at Kickstarter. I mean, that is a website that allows people to, put a project up there and be able to source, micro payments to raise capital. That is exactly the job that Wall Street wants to do because they want to tag on their 3% fee or their 7% fee. But when you do it using the power of the internet, your fees can be much, much smaller, and that's why it's successful. There was a hosting company, a German hosting company that just raised, I think, $2 million on Kickstarter. So it's an infrastructure company. They have a unique approach in terms of what applications they want to support. They could have gone the traditional route in terms of hiring an investment banker, parading in front of private equity guys or high net worth or hedge funds, but no, they went directly to end users. And to speak to Jim's point about, disruption, talk about, Wall Street is completely regulated. And all of a sudden you have, all these issues around, accredited investors and who's not. And this is completely changing the game. So my view would be that, Wall Street, just like every other industry, is going to actually have to think about adding value. Before it was good enough because they knew they were in the middle between the money and the people looking for the money. And being that middleman is a really comfortable place to be. But now with kind of the full maturity of the internet on a global scale, and with the ability of people to understand how to use that. I mean, everyone in this room uses internet apps probably, intensely, which again did not happen 5, 6, 7 years ago. All of a sudden now, even very high value add, services like investment banking are being disintermediated. So that will be a very interesting thing to play out at the application level. Obviously, I hope we'll talk a little bit more about the underlying infrastructure, but that is just software. That is software replacing the purpose of Wall Street.
Yeah, thanks, Raul. And I'm one of the guys looking for money, just in case anyone has something they want to ask. You asked to pick a favorite technology. I'm going to surprise everyone and say it's mine because we're in the broadband wireless space, and this couldn't have been queued up better for what you guys just said. Whether it's Hurricane Sandy or the applications that are driving the needs are going to drive whatever the next version of Wall Street looks like, and I'm certainly not smart enough to know what that is. But I do know there's a lot of smarter people that are moving money around than myself. All of that starts and stops, though, with the capacity to do things and the cost of bits going down so that the capital gets dispersed with a lot more ease. So what we have been doing is, while we started off, as mentioned in the introduction, building a lot of these, you hear about on the microwave high-frequency trading networks, all looking to push the velocity of the bit right to the speed of light on a straight line, and we've come close to that. That's a great thing for enabling certain aspects, but when you look at disasters and how do you recover from them, whether it's a Sandy, I will tell you, we had private networks up when that happened. They all went down when it rained, but the second the rain stopped, we were back. So that's a good compliment. And we've been evangelizing with a lot of our partners and friends in the fiber community that wireless is a necessary bedfellow to a fiber plant. Fiber doesn't go everywhere, neither does wireless, but they can get to spots where the other one isn't, and that combination will enable the internet applications to exist and to provide the kinds of value you might like, because without the underlying infrastructure and the application's ability to get from point A to point Z, it really becomes nothing more than a bunch of science fiction. So I do think that just the convergence of broadband wireless, the fiber plant that's there, the fiber plant that's being built, is really the table that's being set so that all these other things can become in fact true and realized. And not just that it gets there, but it has to get there economically as well. So I think that those are some of the key forces that we see. Is not just that it's there, but it's got to be something that's affordable, because everyone that's looking for money knows there's less of it to be found.